In a small English village, we see people working in a cave and excavating rocks in return for bread. A weary child gets rewarded with half a loaf of bread for his hard work. His poverty is clearly visible. He is clutching to the food as if it were a treasure. On his way home, he comes across a barber telling tales of the great places he has been. The man brags that he has the cure for any possible ailment that the village folk might be suffering from. Back at home, the young boy, Rob, sits by the fire with his mother and two siblings, waiting for supper. After saying grace, the mother tears the loaf of bread for her children. Rob is a compassionate kid and notices her wincing in pain. As he asks, however, she hides her discomfort and assures her eldest child that she is all right. Later that night, Rob's mother's pain increases immensely. Seeing her agony, Rob places his hand on her chest, and suddenly, everything pauses. He can feel her pain, and he knows that she won't make it through the night. Not willing to give up on her, he sprints to the barber's wagon and ushers him to his house, but he is too late. His mother has passed. A priest is standing over her body. Seeing him, the barber recedes his steps in order to stay out of trouble. The newly orphaned siblings are sitting by their mother's lifeless body, fear in their eyes, and the tears rolling down their dirty faces showing how badly they need a parent. At daybreak, the villagers gather around to collect the belongings of the deceased woman, as well as determine who will take care of the orphans. No villager wants to take responsibility for the elder child, leaving Rob alone and with no roof over his head. The poor kid, having nowhere to go, turns to the barber. He offers to take care of the man's horses in return for being allowed to stay with him, but is turned down. As the barber starts to ride away, Rob chases the wagon and makes his way in. Seeing the child's desperation and fear, the barber allows him to spend the night. Still shaken by his mother's death, Rob asks the barber whether he would have been able to save her. The barber tells Rob that his ma had the side sickness, which has no cure. The next morning, the barber finds Rob's tiny little arm wrapped around him. Realizing that the kid just needs some love, he decides to let Rob stay and travel with him. Years pass, and Rob is now the barber's apprentice. He has learned how to bandage wounds and treat small ailments. He is very curious about the human body and wonders what it would look like on the inside. However, the barber cautions him against ever cutting open a corpse. The church forbids it and will have his head for such a heinous crime. One day, the barber is treating a farmer with bad teeth. To help out, Rob places his hand on the farmer's chest to hold him down. Everything stops, and just like he did with his mother, he feels the man's pain and upcoming death. Rob is left feeling quite understandably confused. He tries to warn the barber, but is brushed off. On their way back to the wagon, they are stopped by a group of angry villagers. The farmer has indeed died. The villagers blame the barber, calling him a murderer, and start to lynch him. They set fire to his wagon and injure his hands so that he cannot practice medicine. Rob suggests that the barber can train him and tell him what to do. Though the man is not convinced by this idea, he has no choice but to eventually agree. In the next village, a boy comes seeking medical help for a condition called bone saw. Knowing no other way to treat him, the barber decrees that the child's toes must be amputated. Rob is afraid, but the barber reassures him and guides him. Gathering all his courage, Rob chops off the young lad's toe. The amputation is a success, or at least as close to one as possible. Over time, Rob continues to heal more villagers under the barber's guidance. After numerous successful treatments, the barber christens Rob into a full-fledged barber himself, allowing him to graduate from apprenticeship. As the barber grows older, he starts slowly losing his sight. A lady at the brothel recommends that Rob take the barber to a Jewish physician, as they can heal eye sickness, or in modern terms, cataract. The barber says that's all a lie and asks the woman to shut up. But seeing how worse the barber's condition seems to be getting, Rob decides to take him to the Jews. The Hebrew doctor operates on the barber and invites Rob to stay with him and his family until the barber's eyes heal. After a few days, the bandages come off and the barber can see again. Curious about the procedure, Rob asks the doctor where he learned to operate. The Jew tells him that he learned medicine in Isfahan from the greatest surgeon alive, Ibn Sina. Eager to learn himself and aware of the limits of the barber's knowledge, Rob asks him how he can get there. The response he gets is not a hopeful one. He is warned that, as a Christian, he would not be well received in the Muslim world. He wouldn't even make it past Egypt, so getting to Iran was a pipe dream. Rob tells the barber about Isfahan and his desire to become a hakim, a real doctor. The man does not share his enthusiasm, but as he realizes he will not convince Rob to stay, he reluctantly offers him a ride to Dover. From there, the young man can get a boat that will take him ahead on his journey. The barber puts up a tough exterior, but Rob can see how upset he is. Rob prays to the Lord and asks for forgiveness, knowing he must deny his faith to survive past the vast deserts to reach Isfahan. After months of arduous sea travel, Rob finally arrives in Egypt. A traveler informs him that the caravan to Isfahan leaves soon and offers to get him Jewish robes, as Jews are more. Rob gladly accepts the offer and circumcises himself. He also takes on the alias of Jesse ben Benjamin, in honor of the children of the Hebrew doctor's 2 children. During his journey to Isfahan, he meets a beautiful girl named Rebecca. She is going to Persia as a part of a business deal. The two bond as she reads him stories from Arabian Nights. The caravan comes across a small village that has been pillaged by a nomadic tribe known as the Seljuks. They are a group of Muslim extremists preaching that Allah's subjects must have a pure and pious life free from extravagance. They did not steal anything, content to just bring punishment onto the sinners. The caravan's journey comes to a sudden end, as they are ambushed by a terrifying sandstorm. It kills nearly everyone, leaving Rob as the lone survivor. Lost, starved, and parched, he does not give up. He fights for his life in the vast desert and finally stumbles upon a large town, in the town of Isfahan. The next morning, Rob approaches the madrasa, the place where the Ibn Sina teaches, and requests admission. He is denied on the grounds of lack of recommendation and lack of money. The security guards beat him up and leave him to die on the street. When Rob regains consciousness, he realizes that his wounds have been stitched up and he can feel no pain. He tells his physician that he has traveled across the globe just to learn from Ibn Sina. The physician, who turns out to be Ibn Sina himself, is impressed by Rob's determination to study and grants him a seat in his class. Rob begins to learn with passion. He applies his knowledge as a barber in England to solve some ailments, impressing Ibn Sina further. He soon becomes close friends with 2 students, Mirdan, a Jew who welcomes him into his home, and Karim, a rich Persian. After getting intoxicated, Rob starts reminiscing about Rebecca, whom he lost to the horrid sandstorm. He was in love with her. The city is divided into 2 factions. There are those who stand with the Shah, who believes in extravagance and is liberal towards medicine and other religions. The more conservative support of Imam and his band of mullahs, who believe that the madrasa is a house of sins and seek to drive the Jews out of the city. In the synagogue, Mirdan introduces Rob to Bar Kapara, a wealthy local rabbi. After welcoming and congratulating Rob, the man introduces him to his lovely bride-to-be. It is none other than Rebecca. Rob is confused as he thought she had died in the storm. She informs him that she was saved by the brave guide of the caravan. Rob, glad to see her alive and depressed to see her marrying another man, attends Rebecca's wedding, wishes her happiness, and gives her the storybook that she lost in the sandstorm. Drunk and sad, he goes to a brothel to ease his broken heart. When he touches the sex worker whom he is about to bed, though, he gets the premonition of her death. He rushes her to madrasa. Ibn Sina calms the confused woman and begins to help Rob. He is baffled by Rob's conviction that she is about to die, but is convinced when he sees that she has been bit by a scorpion. Astounded by Rob's talent, Ibn Sina asks him what he sees during these forebodings. Rob explains that they are not visual, but rather a moment of stillness. He believes that he is cursed, but Ibn Sina claims that it is a gift. He also explains to Rob how, as a physician, he cannot view death as the enemy, but rather as a grave mystery. Their conversation is interrupted by the royal guards, asking for Ibn Sina to come to see the Shah. The Hakims reach the Shah's palace, only to find him seated next to a decapitated Seljuk soldier. Even though the soldier had come bearing a peace treaty, the Shah asserts that the Seljuks must be humbled or they would kill every human civilization. After having his wrist bandaged by the 2 doctors, the Shah orders the soldier's head to be sent back to the Seljuks. Upon seeing his son's head in a box, the Lord of the Seljuks demands that he be given a hero's burial. He then decides to send the Shah a message of his own. He orders for one of the Seljuks, a man infected with Black Death, to be sent to Isfahan. The plagued man reaches the city and dies in the middle of the market. The sight of his skin, rotting and covered with black boils, instantly causes a panic. Ibn Sina is informed about this catastrophe and immediately requests the Shah to order an evacuation. However, in his arrogance, the Shah ignores his request and is convinced that the plague will never take Isfahan down. At the madrasa, the students and Ibn Sina try to figure out a cure for the plague. After 12 hours of waiting, they encounter their first plague patient, a woman who the Seljuk had spat on before dying. Rob tries to use his his gift to check which of the patients would die and which would live. Seeing the widespread contamination of the disease, the Shah finally commands that the city be locked from the outside. Only members of the royal court are permitted to leave, while the rest of the population is left to die. Myrddin's parents inform Rob that he must go to the Bar Kappara's house immediately. There, he finds Rebecca in the water pond, covered in black boils. When Rob questions the method of treatment of the boils, Ibn Sina educates him about the deep roots of the sickness. Rob requests Ibn Sina to allow him to perform surgery on one of the corpses to learn more about the boils, but is immediately refused on the grounds of religion. The mortality rate keeps increasing. When one of the Hakims falls prey to the plague, Rob notices that fleas that feed on the dead are carriers of the plague. Him and the other healers make burqas to protect themselves while treating patients and begin burning bodies. Slowly, the situation starts to get better. Patients begin recovering from the plague and the number of deaths drop. Soon, the city doors are opened and people start coming back to Isfahan. Rebecca survives the Black Death and confesses to Rob that she dreamt of the two of them having a life together. While there is cheer and positivity all around, Myrddin and Rob are informed that Karim has got the plague and will not survive. Subsequently, the Bar Kappara returns to Isfahan safely, reigning over the happily ever after that Rob wanted with Rebecca. Rebecca must go back to her domestic life as the rabbi's wife, and Rob must continue to serve the people. Having dealt with losing everyone he has ever loved in his life, from his mother to the barber, and now Karim, Rob is ready to lose Rebecca. While she says her goodbyes, he passionately kisses her. The two make love in a corner of the madrasa. However, one act of love is not enough to change the destinies forced upon them by society. The Shah arranges for a party to reward the Hakims of the madrasa for all that they did to save the people of Isfahan. Seeing Rob standing alone, the Shah approaches him and extends a hand of friendship. On the surface level, Rob's life seems perfect, but he can't let himself rest. Still eager to find out more about the human body, he becomes unfocused and is unable to pay attention to any of the classes. One day, Ibn Sina asks him to treat a patient with side sickness. The patient is a Zoroastrian, not a member of one of the Abrahamic religions, and requests Rob to allow his body to be given to the vultures upon his death. Seeing that the man's faith had no use for the body once dead, and hoping he might escape the taboo, Rob decides to perform an autopsy on it to learn about the internal organs. It leads him to discover the true nature of the side sickness that plagued the man, Rob's mother, and so many others: appendicitis. Meanwhile, the Imam preaches that the plague took over the city because of the madrasa and all the sins that are being allowed in that palace. He decides to help the Seljuks to dethrone the Shah and make the city of Isfahan pure and pious. Rebecca falls ill and the rabbi calls Myrddin to treat her. While examining her, Myrddin discovers that she is with child. Since her husband was away at the time of conception, he knows that the child must be Rob's. He tries to explain to her how she will be shamed and judged her entire life if anyone ever finds out. Her only option is to lay with her husband and convince him that the kid is his. Unfortunately, Rob gets caught by the mullahs and accused of necromancy. While he is being dragged to jail, Rebecca tries to reach him, confirming her husband's suspicions about her. Her punishment for extramarital sex is to be execution by stoning. Rob, meanwhile, is judged by the Imam for his sins. Devout Hossein, who happens to be one of Ibn Sina's students, acts as a witness to the necromancy that Rob has supposedly committed. He states that Ibn Sina is part of the crime as well. Rob refutes his master's involvement, but it is of no use. The Imam sentenced Ibn Sina and Rob to death. Seeing the damage his actions have caused the Jewish community, Rob confesses to not being a Jew. However, Hossein tears open his robe and his physicality contradicts his claim. The two Hakims are thrown in jail, where Rob tells Ibn Sina everything he learned about the insides of the human body. The Shah is furious at the Imam for assuming the position of a judge and commands that he releases Ibn Sina. The Imam refuses and challenges the Shah's rights to the throne. Outside the city walls, the Seljuks have made their way close enough to take over Isfahan. The Shah sends his soldiers to securely bring Ibn Sina and Rob from the mullahs. When they arrive, he informs them that he too had the side sickness and needs them to cure him. They reflexively refuse, as such surgery has never been performed. But alas, they are not given a choice. Meanwhile, the Imam wages his war against the Jews. In order to help the Seljuk invaders, he even goes as far as ordering the city to be set on fire. Rob, Ibn Sina, and Myrddin perform the surgery on the Shah, removing his appendix under anesthesia. They are successful in their dangerous task and postpone the Shah's death. Out of gratitude, he allows the Hakims to guide people toward the East Gate and escape the city before it is taken over. While Rob and Mirdan save the Jews, Ibn Sina brings everyone out of the madrasa. While leaving the city, Rob suddenly notices that Ibn Sina is missing. He rushes towards the madrasa. He finds his master sitting there, staring at a wall. Ibn Sina tells Rob how he dreamt that even thousands of years after his death, the madrasa would still be an institution. Not wanting to see his city and all the texts he collected in the college burn, Ibn Sina poisons himself. He gives Rob a folder containing all his research work so far and commands him to take them and spread the knowledge of medicine. Outside the city walls, the Seljuks have killed the Shah and his army. They are ready to take over Isfahan. The Imam welcomes the Lord of the Seljuks by kneeling in front of him. From a distance, a large cloud of ash is seen lifting from the city. Rob and Rebecca, having both escaped their trails, are finally together, and they can be the family they always wanted to be. Rob says he misses Ibn Sina. Rebecca reminds him that no one is dead if their memory is honored properly. If he wants Ibn Sina's heritage to remain alive, Rob must fulfill his last wish and bring medical science into a new age. And so he does. He returns to England. Along with his wife, Rebecca, and his Jewish friends, he starts a hospital in London. The barber is still alive and traveling from village to village. When he is in London, a 10-year-old boy tells him about physician Cole and his hospital. Eager to see the boy he raised, the barber gives the lad a penny to take him to the hospital.